This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores why one wants to be in the D. I am your host, Fiota Ship III, the director of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. Join me as I interview students, scholars, leaders, and innovators about living, working, and loving in Detroit. Welcome back to the Distinctly Detroit podcast. On today's episode, we have a true Renaissance man. Brian Colding is currently a teacher at Renaissance High School teaching art and design to students. He is a graduate from the University of Michigan's School of Art and Design. He got a BFA from there, and he did a unique turn. He became a professional wrestler. And today we're going to talk about how he's gotten into wrestling, bodybuilding, and teaching. He's a father, husband, and educator. And ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Brian Colding. Hello, sir. Welcome.
What's up, man?
Glad to have you here. Where'd you grow up?
Livernois and Davidson on the west side of Detroit. Just, if everybody knows what the little florist, the little green florist, Livernois florist shop
Next
is.
to the
right
Shrine of the Black Madonna.
Right behind the shrine. Literally right behind the Shrine of the Black Madonna.
Okay.
I used to be mad. I used to go in there looking for comic books and they never had any.
Okay. And so you are a graduate of the esteemed Cass Technical High School.
CT. Yep.
Yes. We actually went to high school together, so small world, or big town as they call Detroit. What prompted you to choose the University of Michigan to go to undergrad?
Coincidence. Sheer coincidence. But I have a clear idea where I was going, what I was doing. You grow up in Metro Detroit and you hear about U of M, Go Blue, U of M. The first time I saw the campus of either U of M or Michigan State, I was on one of those smart kid trips. You remember when we were back in the 80s and they always wanted to put you in something this summer, so they have you sit in some stuffy school. So the field trip was to a college. And didn't think much about it. I mean, I went to state and was kind of like, okay, Michigan State, yeah, whatever. So the next summer, I ended up doing another one of those programs, and we were on U of M's campus 2 or 3 days a week. And I got comfortable there, but I wasn't thinking twice about it. I was going to join the Marines. I was going to sign up and join the Marines. I didn't think twice. I don't want to paint a dreary picture of my childhood, but it wasn't the happiest. I had a mother who could talk to me, but would not talk to me. And she was a counselor, high school counselor, so okay. She was paid to talk to other kids and did so proudly. Me, I was my father's son, so you know how that goes. So ask your daddy. And my father was too busy doing other things to pay attention. So, time came around, everybody talking to yourself, yeah, man, I applied. Talking to other folks, I said, why not? Let me just put an application in and see what happens. And I did. I mean, it's just very coincidental. I really didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. I wanted to join the Marines because that's all only answer I had for myself without guidance.
Okay. Well, I want to explore that a little bit because one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on board is, like I said at the beginning, I think you're a true Renaissance man. Like, when did you start lifting?
I was 13 years old. My uncle, you remember those old weight sets, the little concrete sets with the little weights? So,
yeah.
My brother, Chuck, was captain of everything. He had a six-pack and muscles by the time he was 14. So Marvin that was my uncle, rest in peace. He bought him a weight set, and we just lift weights at home. And when I was 13, I seriously started lifting weights because I was always I was tall. I've been 6'2", and a half. I shrunk half an inch, spinal compression. But I was 6'2" and a half by the time I was 12. And the doctors talking about, you're going to be 6'8" at this point. I want my extra 7.5, 8 inches. I feel ripped off because I need to be 6'8", but that's nonetheless. So I was always predisposed to size and strength. And I just lifted weights and just lifted. And then we got to Cass in our freshman year. Everybody's taking gym. They wanted to hoop. I took weight training, weight conditioning. Yeah. And I was constantly buying a little Arnold Schwarzenegger muscle fitness magazines trying to see what Arnold Lee Haney said. And there was a man, Jerry Montgomery, who Jerry was probably the biggest influence on my life between ages 13 and hell 27, 28. But Jerry was going to Powerhouse Gym, and he tell me what to do with the weights. I wasn't going to Powerhouse, of course, as a kid, but he tell me how to lift, and that really allowed me to maximize my strength. So, by the time you saw me at school and I was doing something everybody thought was like, well, he's strong. I was used to being around dudes who could bench press 500-600 pounds, and I didn't consider myself even remotely strong. But that's where the weightlifting came from. Just Chuck's weights and then talking with Jerry and just lifting.
Got into that. But you're also an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think people get confused. Like they look at you and they're like, look at this big guy. But then you sit down and have a conversation with you. It's like, oh, wow, this guy's really smart. He's in the art. I mean, it just, I don't know. To me, I just always found it fascinating. I hope the audience does as well.
Well, honestly, man, I've been an artist entirely in my life. One of my oldest memories, you remember back in the day, they were just parents. I don't understand. I don't understand what was on mind of parents, because they would take a kid, put that child in a crib, put that child in a closed room in the crib, close the door, like they could just ignore the screaming. And I had to be younger than 2, and I kept saying, Superman, Superman. And I wanted to draw Superman. So I stuck my hand in the diaper, and I drew Superman. So my father came up. He was like, what's that smell? I'm omitting all the cursing. What's that smell? So he came in the room, and it was drawn in boo-boo all over the wall. And I was like, Superman. And he, Gwen. My mother's name, Gwen, come get him. He's covered in blankety blank and blankety blank all over the wall. So my oldest memory is drawing Superman in baby turd all over the wall. And so when I went to U of M, what do you major in? Art? I didn't have answers. If I knew then what I know now, I'd have been a physical therapist, because I love the gym. Artist who I am, I would have been an artist anyway. But my passion is writing. Okay. But I find that right behind writing, training. I really enjoy training. I don't want people hitting me up, when we gonna train?
I've done that.
I'm very selfish about that.
Yeah.
We've talked about it, and I was like, you let me know when. But I don't get friends asking me when we gonna train. I get random people like, yeah, I'm your wife's third cousin on such and such side. I need to hit the gym. Well, the gym's over that way. You can go do all you want to do.
Hit it all up.
Yeah. I've always been, and I'm self-taught with animation, self-taught with 3D art. I mean, because, we went to school at an awkward time, man. Yeah. I know we've had this conversation many times over, but we had professors tell us, I won't take a computer printed paper. I want a typewriter. A typewriter? Well, yeah, a typewriter. And I had people in the School of Art, it wasn't even called penny stamps at the time, tell me, oh, the computer is a trend. It's a fad. It'll be gone in a couple of years. I'm not going to finish the sentence. So by the time 95 rolled around and I graduated, by 97, they had fully implemented computers throughout the programs. So everything I learned, I had to learn on the job. I had to self-teach. And
they get the students laptops when they come in now. It's part of the entry package.
Must be nice. It must be nice, man.
Nice MacBooks. They're really expensive, but...
for what they charge, I can see. But, man, the art thing, and I tell my students all the time, don't let the weightlifting fool you. I'm the biggest nerd in the school. Like, if you ask me who won the Super Bowl, I remember the Chiefs, because it wasn't the Lions. Who won the year before? I think it was the Chiefs, if I remember correct, because
they won back to back.
Yeah, if you ask me who won the NBA championships, my answer is a basketball team. But I'm not being smart. I don't know. That's my brother. Yeah. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of sports. So the things that dudes consider stereotypically masculine, it was just a thing to me. I could tell you about Sugar Ray Robinson's records. I can tell you about Muhammad Ali's conditioning, his road conditioning, but I never cared much for traditional sports. I love playing them for fun, but I never wanted to be coached because I didn't want to be cussed at about picking up a ball and how fast you can run. So.
I get it. So I'm curious. Okay, so you majored in art, and I heard you say you didn't really necessarily have a plan for what to do with that degree after. Mm-hmm. But I know one of the things I find interesting is you became a bouncer. I'm not sure exactly when, either while you're still in undergrad or after you became a bouncer.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like?
I did some security. I needed quick money, and I had a couple friends who worked in gentlemen's clubs. So, uh, Big George put me on a couple times during the summer, and I'm like, wow, I can make this standing around, look at me, and ready to fight. That's what I do anyway. But, and I want people to be mistaken. Um, I look mean if I'm not smiling, but I get that from my mother. So if you see my mother, I'm like, why she look angry? That's just what they call it, the rest in such and such face. So it looks, it's just a natural visage, but it's not who I really am. So long story, not even long story short story short is I got done at U of M, had this big bad art degree, didn't know I needed to be in Chicago or New York or LA. No, I didn't. I had no idea. I just had my degree. And I'm listening to these baby boomers telling me, hey, get your degree, they'll give you a job. Like, yeah, that might have been how it worked in 73, but that ain't how it worked in 95.
Yeah.
So I got a job. First job paid me $200 a week after tax. It's my same buddy who put me on at the Gentlemen's Club, got me down at Legends. I was making $400 a week cash. I could work 40 hours a week and make $200 a week after taxes, or I can make $400 a week cash working 20 hours a week and hanging out. There's celebrities. I met a ton of celebrities. Celebrities, free liquor. I don't drink. Man, I probably drink more now than I did then. And basically, if I ain't on a Carnival cruise, I don't drink. So, but it's free liquor, free food, and I met a young lady. She was a 90, something wrong with them kids, They blink one eye at a time and something wrong with the 90 kid. But I didn't meet her. I had known her since freshman year of high school. And I was just sitting there by coincidence, and she called me up one night. I'm like, man, this is like lightning bolt. Boom, lottery hit. And we went out. And it wasn't 6 weeks later, I proposed. And I'm like, damn, I got to find a better gig than bouncing. Excuse me. And I started substitute teaching. And at the same time, that's the first time WWF called, because I was wrestling. I started wrestling September of 1995.
That was a question I was going to ask. Like, when did the wrestling come in?
Man, September of 95. Because, I'm done. From kindergarten through 12th grade, we're told what to do. And then we go into college, and they ask us what we want to do. We tell them what we want to do, and then they tell us what we have to do to do what we want to do for a living. So without that structure, I'm kind of like, what do I do? And Big Rob used to take me to he'd ask me if I want to go. So we would go hit the little independent shows. The wrestling back then was different. Now anybody with a room this size and a ring could put on the show. Back then you had to have a Scott D'Amore is probably a name you don't know, but have you ever heard of TNA or Impact Wrestling?
Yes.
He was the co-owner for years. He recently severed ties with TNA and Impact, like maybe about 2 months ago. Recently, very recently. And we were training in the Scott's gym, just right across the bridge, straight down. It was at Ouellette Street, if I remember. And the very first day, we went in. It ain't like now. Anybody with $2,000 show up, and then you just, here's my money. And 6 weeks later, you're a wrestler. Like, So, okay, Doug Chevalier, Canadian Destroyer. Rest in peace, Doug. Man, he concussed us. He bumped us until our backs were stiff and we were concussed. And he was like, all right, you fellas coming back next week? Yeah. We came back next week. He's like, all right, they're back. So he bumped us again until we were concussed. And there were a couple other guys who showed up. They didn't come back the third week. He bumped us again until we were concussed. I mean, I'm serious. I'm not joking. Brain damage is really a serious issue in pro wrestling. Okay. And the guys that showed up, they didn't come back. About the fourth week, there were a bunch of new guys, and he bumped them. He's like, you guys are good. You're in. Because, we got it easier. Hogan got his ankle broken, like snappity snap broken first time he tried out, because it was a protected business back then. Vince McMahon completely revealed it to the world. And with that Tough Enough series, he ran for 3 years, but it was called kayfabe, which is like a Pig Latin offshoot. So kayfabe, fake. So how to kayfabe and get along and maintain the business and not let the public know how it's done. Then although now people know it's set up, they don't understand how it's set up. The folks say, "Oh, the falls real?" I'm like, dude, you can't fake gravity.
Yeah.
Oh, the punches and kicks. No, if I can show you how to punch and kick me, and the problem isn't that there's a magical way you can kick me in my liver and not hurt me. You have to really control your movements, and I have to really sell my movements, because if you cock back and you swing your foot, I have to be in motion. And if I'm not in motion, hey, I'm about to go to the hospital with a ruptured liver. So if you, it's 110% choreography, but it's not play choreography. It's not little kids twirling around and playing ring around a posy.
Yeah.
So
somebody can really still get hurt.
Oh yeah, I've had all types of injuries, and because of my martial arts training, I know how to roll with punches. So there have been times I have teeth missing or a jaw broken if I didn't. So I got Hancock back. I'm going to go with it. So and even then, it's called getting stiff. Even then, got stiff. And some people do it on purpose, but it happens. I mean, you're in the heat of things. You throwing and throwing and throwing. You're gonna clock a dude for real a couple of times.
Okay. So you again, you got your art degree from the prestigious University of Michigan. You end up, you're not quite sure what to do with it. You go into bouncing, you go into wrestling, and you start teaching
acting as well.
Yeah,
I've been in a couple independent films, and people say, "Oh, independent films, that's nothing big." But my very first independent film was produced by Terry Crews.
The game right now.
Yeah, they are.
There's a lot of people in Detroit making money off independent films right now.
Yeah, independent films finally got their respect, man. Yeah. They finally got, because to be a major motion picture, you got to work with at least two of the three guilds: Actors, Writers, and Directors Guild. So cats like Spike Lee, hey, I'm a writer, I'm in the Writers Guild. Hey, I'm a director, I'm in the Directors Guild. And just by his own presence, he could pick the actors he wanted. So the Actors Guild couldn't show up and give us the flavor of the day. He could put Wesley on until Wesley caught on. He put Denzel on until Denzel caught on. But I think the public start looking for entertainment. And it's Hollywood's fault. You know, Hollywood started saying, we want to force feed you A-listers. So they have these movies. So, well, where's part two? Oh, the A-lister said he doesn't feel like it because he can't get $50 million for it. Like, for real? But what about us?
Continuing the story and sharing something.
Yeah.
But okay. But all of this, you started acting, but you got married, you're starting to build a family. Yeah. How did you juggle all of this? I mean, you got a lot going on. How did you manage that?
You know how they say if you love it, it ain't work.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, at the time, my disposition was substitute teaching. I was what you call ESRP, emergency sub in a regular position. And I was hardy. I'm like, oh, this isn't a real job. I'm going back to get a real corporate job, first chance I got. But as an ESRP, they gave me lesson plans, showing me how to teach them. So I wasn't just in there shooting the breeze. I was given lesson plans.
You wasn't just bringing in the AV cart and showing the movie?
Exactly.
Okay.
No, Ms. Kirk would sit with me and work with me. And she's like, it's a lesson plan. This is what you introduce. It's a chapter they need to be on, so on and so forth. And I did that for years, man. And I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and get certified. I think I like this. Like, man, get certified. So I start taking a class. The WWE, we had the first dart match, which is an untelevised match, trial match, 7 days before my son was born. He was born June 12th, 2000. So it's June 5th, 2000. And we had the dart match, and everything was going good. We just knew we were going to get signed. And how PG do I have to be?
Very. Very.
Okay, so guy named Jack Lanza. I hope Black Jack Lanza. So of the Blackjacks, used to be Black Jack Mulligan and Black Jack Lanza. You remember Barry Windham?
I remember Black Jack Mulligan.
Okay, so Barry Windham's Black Jack Mulligan's son.
Okay.
So Black Jack Mulligan and Black Jack Lanza were tag team partners. At the time, Jack Lanza was standing in for a man named Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson was going through heart failure. So he was the interim head of talent. And he said, I don't feel like hiring no hard R's right now. Yeah. And we like, oh, I want to sign any hard R's. Because they had The Rock, they had D-Lo, they had The Godfather, they had Mr. Simmons, Ron Simmons, I call him Mr. Simmons. I know the whole family. Whole family. I know two of his brothers and one of his sisters. And a couple of his nieces and nephews. But and then they had a couple others, and he just flat out, he was like, oh, okay, well, Guess this ain't happening. So we went back, the whole fervor. After about a year and a half, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna take another class towards the certification and whatever. We still wrestling. Then another call. So we had another tryout. This time, The Rock's father, Rocky Johnson,
Okay.
he and Bob Remus, Sergeant Slaughter, got us on the phone. Rhonda was, my wife's sitting there. Rhonda was sitting in the office with us, and they're asking her, would you be ready to move to Florida? ABC 123, and yada, yada, yada. And company / office politics undid that. There's a guy, what's that guy's name? With Jim Cornette. Office politics screwed everybody over. The Rock was Wilson Rock. He the original Rock that Rocky Johnson was working with. And man, this went on for 11 years. It's like, imagine having the most beautiful woman you ever met just love you, and she only want to come around when your credit is strong. Y'all tear that credit up. 9 months later, when that credit is weak, she'll be like, I love you. I see you when it's back to an 850. You like, okay, I'm done with her. I'm done. 840. How you doing? Like, oh God, man, this went on like a bad relationship for 11 years. And in 2010, I had my last tryout. Even then, I'm like, I just knew I was gonna get signed. Was on NXT twice. Just knew I was gonna get signed. And it didn't happen. And I'm like, I'm tired of this. So I continued to wrestle. And, remember when we were little, they had big time wrestling.
Yeah.
That was AWWL was run by the Sheik. And when the Sheik got sick, his son, Eddie Jr., took over. And we were on, he didn't have the money to buy into the Detroit market, but we were on TV all over Michigan. It's a trip because I can come back home and, hey, if people knew me, that was just me. But if I went to Jackson, if I went to Lansing, if I went over to Kalamazoo, folks were like, aren't you one of the Cole brothers? Why, yes, I am one of the Cole brothers. But, there were a lot of topsy-turvy things, like with 9/11. We were supposed to go do this big tag team tournament in Japan. We were on TV in Japan. I think Chuck still has a couple of commercials because they got us flexing and this and that. We tried out down with Terry Gordy. You ever heard of the Fabulous Freebirds from back in the day?
I remember, yeah.
So we tried out at Terry Gordy's gym down in Chattanooga, and everything was cool. 9/11 happened. You know what happened with 9/11? No international travel. So after a couple things like this, I told my brother, I said, I don't think God has this in our plan. I don't think this is what we're supposed to do. It really wasn't in the long term, because if I got signed in 2000, my other 4 sons wouldn't have been born. If I got signed in the end of 02, my other 3 wouldn't have been born. Well, it was 03, excuse me. We got signed in 07, when we were running around Pennsylvania with the WWE, my youngest wouldn't have been born.
Do the math, people. He has 5 children, all sons.
5 boys. Big.
They take pictures. Not mean they look like a gang.
Yeah. The smallest is 6 feet and 215 pounds. Yeah. That little 14-year-old, man. Dude. He eats like a zombie.
Eating you out of house and home.
Yeah.
So you're managing. You're trying to you're pursuing the dream of wanting to be a wrestler, but you're being practical. You're getting the teaching certification. You're doing the substitute teaching. Yeah. When did you decide to go back and get the master's in education?
See, what had happened was in 2009 we moved to Los Angeles, and we lived on the border of LA and in Beverly Hills, and we were there about half a year. And Los Angeles, the math wasn't mathing in LA. It just wasn't working out. We came back pretty quickly. Everybody was miserable. Things just weren't right. So we came back. I was working in adult ed. That's when I started working for Big Time Wrestling for Eddie Farhat Jr. And it was just, for me, it was just life as usual, doing freelance work. I mean, I had a lot of freelance artwork, Chrysler, Lamborghini, Chrysler Mopar, a lot of freelance work. And it was just life. So we ended up moving back to California for her job in 2013. And that was a bust, because within months, her youngest brother and my father both had diagnosed with cancer, late stage cancer. So we rushed back. And I was like, enough of this. We've been bouncing around. And I just finished my master's. And that was that with the teaching. So full on art teacher for Renaissance High School. CT for Renaissance High School, and um, and there's been a lot in the middle, man. I've been in a bunch of movies, a
Yeah.
bunch of them. I was on a TV show called Detroit 187, and I auditioned
I
to be a
remember that show.
boxer.
Yeah.
And people my size in Hollywood are either stuntmen, well, people my size in LA are either stuntmen or professional athletes. And I learned that in LA with, like, we go sit down at Chili's and they were giving us free meals. And like, what's going on? Congratulations on the upcoming season. Like, season, fall? Like, oh, these people think, okay, well,
Thank you.
don't threaten
Thank
me
you
with a free
very
meal.
much.
Don't threaten me with
Let's hurry
6.
up. Yeah, let's hurry up and go. Thank you.
Yeah,
Got
so
you.
I didn't challenge the notion, but then I got to know folks. My cousin was working for Paramount, and I started meeting people behind the scenes, and they started telling me like, yeah, guys your size are either in the stunts or so on and so forth. So I was too big to play the boxer because people they say are 6'2" are really about 5'10". People they say are 250 are really about 185. So the guy they hired to play my part was a cat from Chicago, and they brought another dude in from L.A. Who he had been in a bunch of commercials, and to play opposite the part I auditioned for. That dude's name was Chadwick Boseman.
Okay.
I sat around with Chadwick for like 14, 15 hours, kicking it like buddies, man.
Yeah.
One of the nicest guys you ever meet. And back then, social media, it was okay. And, everybody's still trying to be macho. So I went, hey, man, let's keep up with social media. I didn't think about it. And, ask no dude for a number,
Yeah.
I should have.
Kept it moving.
Yeah. But that's my start. I got to sit around and kick it with Chadwick for 14 hours, man, cracking jokes and just a real nice, laid back, humble, sweet guy. You see some people, you see them rise, and you look and like, and then you see this cat rise. You're like, man, bravo, I cheer him on.
Yeah. And just a couple of things I want to touch on before we switch to the lightning round. But I'm curious. Again, you're an artist, physical fitness buff, bodyguard, actor, parent, father. Now you're teaching. What has been some of the big lessons you've learned in teaching? What are some of the takeaways from your teaching experience?
You have to listen. You only grow old when you stop listening to the young. The young are versatile. They're all about change. And children are very plug and play. The younger they are, the more plug and play they are. So you get these guys who, I ain't have a father, I ain't know what to do. You don't know what to do with a 5-year-old. You ask a 5-year-old, what do you want to do? They'll tell you what they want to do and what they need. Now, when they're 15, what do you need? I don't know. That's a headache. But 5, I want to be a superhero. I want a dinosaur. I want to have 15 candy bars. I want to go to a movie. I don't want a toy. So you're like, okay, superhero, 15 candy bars, movie. Okay, we can do that. Toy, what type of toy you want? All of them. Which one? So the question is, are you going to take this kid to a movie and get the kid a toy? You're going to see a 2-hour movie and get this kid a $15 toy. They think you the greatest thing ever. It's not. Kids are, the hardest part about dealing with them is being selfless, whether you're a parent or a teacher or a social worker or anything you're doing with a young person. You got to listen and you got to put them ahead of you. Not in everything, but in most things. You just got to be willing to keep your ears open. Man, I know teachers who act like they hate young people. And I'm like, why are you here? Why would you take this job? I've had teachers tell me flat out, I took the job because I like the hours. And I'm like, you are the worst thing that happens. I've learned working in Detroit public schools, like with the dress code, is the uniform code. They are more concerned with policing these inner city kids and how they dress than what they know. Now, when I was working on my master's, I was subbed in the suburbs, and I saw kids dressed up like all pink like Barbies, kids in Megadeth t-shirts and ratty gym shoes, kids in shorts, kids in tracksuits. They didn't care. As long as you were able to keep up with this AP calculus, they did not care. I come here, I've seen kids who have literally been removed from classrooms because their shirt wasn't tucked or didn't have a collar. So, when we were young, we were told, oh, the Japanese are smarter than you. Now, the millennials heard, the Chinese and Indians are smarter than you. Gen Z have been told everybody's smarter than you. So you're being told that America is steadily declining academically, and you put the fact that this kid ain't got a collar on in the forefront of the education.
Priority.
And I knew a kid, his house caught on fire. They knew his house caught on fire. The only clothes he had were the clothes in his car. And they were still harassing him about uniform. And ain't got it is ain't got it. This wasn't the house of a doctor and a lawyer. He was like, man, my mother worked at Foot Locker. It's like, man, my father pays child support, but it's three of us, and he only worked at the factory. We're not rich, so we're working class people. I don't have it. So he would come in my classroom. They put him out. He'd get his work, come in my classroom and do the work. And I get to hear teach. Why you let him in your class? Mind your business. That's why. If you ain't the principal, mind your business. So I've been an advocate for young people, and so much so that a lot of the older people don't much care for me. But I'm not there for them.
Somebody needs to advocate for the kids. So thank you. Bravo for that.
I appreciate it.
Another question. Just want to talk. You touched on this early in the interview. What was your first comic book?
Wait a minute. The first one I owned for myself.
Well, I mean, I don't expect you to know specifically the first comic book, but like,
oh no, I know
what
the
were you
first one I
into?
read. The very first one I read, as I read early, was the issue of Marvel 2-in-1 where the Thing fought the Hulk. I was reading about age 3. Thanks to Sesame Street. Shout out to Sesame Street. But it was Marvel 2-in-1, but I didn't own that book. The first one I owned, I don't remember the first one I owned, but the very first one I read was the issue.
What was the first series you collected?
ROM. ROM, ROM. It was ROM the Space Knight. It was the very first continuing. I have every single issue series I collected. When my father moved back in town, he lived in Madison Heights. And there was a 7-Eleven about half a mile from where he lived, so I could walk up there and buy comics. And whoever the manager was made sure that though they had new comics every week. And when I would go, comic books was like 35 cents.
Yeah.
So I'd be back home grabbing bottles, so I'd show up and I got $3.50. So I got 10 new comics. And my mother hated it. Why are you always reading the comics? My father was like, he's reading. That's why he's reading on the 12th grade level in the 4th grade, because he's reading. And now I have an addiction, full-on addiction. Don't tell my wife.
Hiding comic books.
I have so many comic books right now that I actually have. Some of the things in my house that you might think are furniture are actually comic boxes with like tablecloths on them. We got to get a bigger crib.
I understand, sir. Okay. We've touched on a lot, man. It's like I said, we could go all day. You have a wonderful story. I just really want to give people a taste because to me, it's all fascinating, like the journeys, and we can't get into everything we've gone on to. He has an ongoing series he posts on Facebook called One Night at Legends, and it's hilarious. I keep trying to encourage him to write the book called Several Nights at Legends or something, but we're gonna come back. We're probably gonna bring you back on the show, but right now we're gonna transition to what we call our lightning round.
Okay.
And our lightning round is where we kind of address your interaction, engagement with the city, and things you do or things you know or care about in the city that are related to Detroit. And the first question is, what's your Coney order?
Oh God, my Coney order gotta have chili fries, but I need mustard on my chili fries. Then I gotta have 6 Coney dogs.
Oh my God.
With onions with mustard on top. I don't do that ketchup stuff. Ketchup, yeah.
Oh, that's a Chicago thing. We do not.
Yeah, man.
That's blasphemous.
So I'm gonna need 6 Coney dogs with chili fries. That's it.
Okay.
I don't eat like I used to. Because we used to hit the
6
Plaka, go leave Legends and go to the Plaka. Man, dude, I ate like that now. I'd have a stroke. Oh God, I have a stroke.
Who's your favorite Detroit athlete?
Billy Sims. Billy Sims, man, that's what broke my heart about the Lions. The Lions can do it. Like, man, they ran Billy's knees into the dirt. Because as a kid, I lived downtown in the Millender Center, and one of my friends, his father was business partners with Billy Sims. So I see Mr. Sims all the time. Mr. Sims and Smokey Robinson just coming in and out. Man, I'm like, I look back like, man, I knew Billy Sims and Smokey Robinson. And I don't mean because my father knew him. They knew me. Hey,
Yeah.
Lil Conan, what's going on? How you doing? How keeping them grades up? You at Cass, blah, 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 blah. I knew Billy Sims and Smokey Robinson.
That's cool. Verner's or Canada Dry?
Seriously? Man, get out.
Hey,
Ain't nobody drink no Canada Dry.
you'd be surprised.
Man, look,
You gotta watch the episode. Some
they ain't
people say
Detroiters.
Canada Dry.
They ain't Detroiters.
Better made or Lay's?
Oh, better made every day.
Okay. Detroit or New York style pizza?
Detroit. New York style pizza is that big with 2 pepperonis. They charge you $15 and they roll it up and it tastes like paste. And Chicago pizza ain't nothing but an unseasoned casserole. Man, Detroit pizza just, and all Detroit is a mixture of the two, but they actually use seasonings and they give you toppings. So Detroit style all day, every day.
Favorite Motown artist?
I gotta go with the Temptations, man. But no. Individually, Otis. People like, oh, ain't nobody here to see you, Otis. Look at this. David Ruffin ain't had but what, one album? Otis has been connected to every single hit, from the first one to the last one. He has been connected to every single one. So if you go see David Ruffin and listen to his songs, he got one album. You go listen to Papa Was a Rolling Stone. That wasn't Ruffin. You know, the In My Mind, that wasn't David Ruffin. So Otis has been connected. And, you know, we were at the Motown groundbreaking. And when I met him, you know, people were trying to rush up to meet Barry Gordy and all these other folks. I went straight to Otis. I had to go meet Otis Williams. So.
Okay. Favorite place to go in the city?
Favorite place to go in the city? Back in the day when I was little, it was Palmer Park. As a teenager, it was Greektown, Trappers Alley. As an adult, I have to say, a favorite place to go in the city, the DIA. But that's the art nerd in me.
That's right. Favorite Detroit sports team?
Oh, the Pistons. Bad boys.
Okay. And last question is, where can we find you?
You mean literally, or what am I up to?
Well, I mean, just where, you know, are you on social media? This is this is your opportunity for your shameless self plug. You know, whatever you got going on.
Okay, well,
yeah.
All right. We started a business called Superior Championship Wrestling, and if you look at Brian Colding on Facebook or Superior Championship Wrestling on Facebook, Superior Championship Wrestling. So we've done some pretty visible fundraisers for Christ Child House. We just did one for Renaissance High School, had almost the entire school in there. We have another one coming up in June at the Royal Oak Skate Park. There's a young man by the name of Brandon Hudson who's on Fox 2 News, who is, for some reason, taking a disliking to my kindly, saintly brother, who's known as Chuck Cole. So Brandon Hudson, and probably, I can't say the other name, but we're working on getting another Fox 2 News personality to show up and have a calm and enlightening conversation with my brother and me about what the problem is with interactions they've had in the recent past with my kind, saintly brother. And there won't be any body slams, anything exchanged. Maybe some chair shot. I mean, maybe some harsh words, but yeah. So, that's what's going on with me right now. Been working on a graphic novel. I'm working on the second part of my written novel. I did a fantasy novel, but I started writing it, ironically, in college. And then I was like, I want to publish it, but I don't want to go through a publisher because the first thing they want to do is tell you what to change and how to change. And Rhonda was like, you've been editing this thing for 20 years and you're going to keep editing, just self-publish. So I self-published it and I'm satisfied with it. But, you know, when you are a creative force of one, things kind of get stagnant. And, you know, we've talked before about doing something. We have to do something. And the opportunity is now. The technology is at the point where you don't need $50,000 in equipment to record anything. Not like yesteryear, not like 10 years ago. But that's what's going on with me right now. Superior Championship Wrestling and beating up Brandon. Conversing with Brandon Hudson about why this super rich newsman wants to come in and take Big Rookie's job trying to clean up Chuck Cole. And that's a direct quote from him. So, if Brandon, you hear this, holler at my brother.
And he is on Facebook, Instagram, and all those places. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Colding, modern day Renaissance man, artist, educator, father, husband.
Can't interrupt a minute.
Fraternal brother.
I just consider myself an average Detroiter because if you talk to folks, you'll be surprised at where they've gone and who they met and what they've done. It has an interesting story. Like you sitting here talking to me, but ironically, when this isn't involved, all this stuff isn't here, I find myself fascinated talking to you because you're like, Brian, you done all this. I'm like, yo, your life is fascinating. Detroit is really full. The city was run down and it's come back, and it's truly facing another renaissance where it's growing again. But Detroit is full of bright stars, and you just never know who you're going to meet or what you're going to encounter, or what their story is, or what their background is.
Shout out to Sam Donald. Everybody in Detroit is a celebrity. Yes, that's his saying on his shirts. He sells shirts. They say everybody in Detroit is a celebrity.
I feel like that sometimes. I've walked down the street and bumped into the Black Panthers, and just talking to them, it's just like, wow. And, that's meeting regular folks who've done extraordinary things is kind of the reason why I don't. And then have as a bouncer and a bodyguard. I didn't even touch on the bodyguard and stuff. I bodyguarded some pretty famous celebrities who are currently locked up, and they really were scumbags when I was around them. I ain't naming no names, but think about who they are. And that's why I'm not impressed with celebrities, man, because you just surprised. You just never know who you're gonna end up talking to just walking around the corner one day.
All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Distinctly Detroit podcast. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please like, rate, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been the Distinctly Detroit podcast. This is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please like, subscribe, and rate us. This podcast is executive produced by Marlon Franklin, edited by Aranza Stanton, and written by Shaylin Jones and Fyodor Ship III.